Who exactly is Headlock Gaming, and what exactly is my history with Mortal Kombat over the past 30 plus years of this franchise? Welcome into today's video. I've wanted to do this for a very long time to kind of formally introduce myself to everybody, give you a lot of the history of myself with Mortal Kombat, how I got started, my experience with each game throughout the years. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Thank you for clicking on it. I've wanted to do this for a while. I hope you enjoy. 1992, October 8th to be specific, Mortal Kombat was released in arcades to a sea of bloodthirsty fans. I was 11 years old at the time. There's an outdoor mall here in Florida somewhere, so I believe it's like a rest stop, convenience area. I'm not quite sure. We were coming back from a family outing. We stopped there to get some things, and I scuttled over to the arcade section. They had one or two machines over in the corner, you know, in this little arcade section, one or two arcade machines, a crane game. And I remember there was a crowd of people there. And I remember walking up, and I believe Raiden's fatality was the first fatality I saw. I know I saw Raiden's fatality that day and Sub-Zero's spine rip. And I was absolutely blown away and completely mesmerized. Because at the time, I'd grown up on Atari 2600, Nintendo, and I'd never seen anything like this. You had real-looking characters in graphics that I'd never seen before. Arcade audio that I'd never, ever seen before. It was so captivating. And I asked my parents after we left, I said, can we please go to the arcade when we get back and see if they have it there? And when we went back to my local arcade, sure enough, it was there. My local arcade was a wonderful place right on the side of my mall in my hometown. It had a barrel for an opening. I don't remember the name of the arcade, but I remember when you would walk in the arcade, the very first thing that you would see to the right of you was the Mortal Kombat 1 arcade machine. I played Mortal Kombat 1 there. That came out October 8th, 1992. And I remember I was glued to that machine all the time. And during that year, a lot of things happened. I remember specifically when the magazine article came out with a publication where they showed a reddish tinted ninja, and somebody had claimed to have found a red ninja on Mortal Kombat 1. Somebody had found the Mac, you know, the Mac at the time. I believe it was Mac in the coding, and they thought it was maybe a secret character. And there was rumors floating around about a secret ninja called Mac in Mortal Kombat 1. Of course, it was all fake at the time, but it was interesting. And there was a lot of rumors that went around. We had the reptile secret fight. It was a tremendous time for the first year of this game. And it wasn't around long before we got wind of a new Mortal Kombat coming to the arcade. And before we knew it, after the first year of Mortal Kombat, which was absolutely a blast in arcades, nothing like it. Absolutely nothing like it. The machine was always packed. But then, one day I went into the arcade, and there was Mortal Kombat 2. Now, this is during the days of gaming magazines. So, you know, I don't remember how much ahead of time notice we had of Mortal Kombat 2 coming, but I remember back in the day, a majority of this game for me, MK1 in 92, I would have been 12 years old playing it. I wasn't a very competitive player at 12 years old, but I played it so much, and it just became second nature. And we didn't have a lot of players at my arcade. We had a lot of casuals that would come through, so I ended up being one of the better players at the arcade just because I ended up staying there so much. This is also the time I began mowing lawns to get arcade money, because my parents, when they said, well, if you're going to be going to the arcade all the time, you're going to need to, you know, do things to earn money to pay for it. So that's how I was paying for my arcade funds. But then Mortal Kombat 2 released. That was an exciting time to be an MK fan, because they took everything and doubled it up. Mortal Kombat 2. This was a big deal when this came out and hit arcades. Now, when Mortal Kombat 2 came out, it took everything that was great about the first game and just doubled it up. In the first game, we had one panel explaining the story of Goro and kind of the story of the tournament. Here you have an opening that shows the whole story of MK2. And I'll never forget the first time going to the arcade, we had Revision 1.4, which was a very incomplete version of Mortal Kombat 2. And I don't remember the exact story, but I remember hearing rumors around the time that they actually released it early because they were trying to get it into arcades before Street Fighter could release their next game. And I just remember Revision 1.4 of the arcade Mortal Kombat 2 had very little blood, very few fatalities. The bosses were extraordinarily hard. There were some amazing glitches or bugs in the game that you could take advantage of. And I believe you could beat the entire game by just pressing down and low punch. I believe the enemy in revision 1.4 and I think even 2.1 was able to be defeated all the way up the tower like that. Not the bosses, I don't think, though. But when we were playing this was at the very back of my arcade. When you would walk into the arcade, it was at the very back end. If you were playing it, you'd have been facing the door to the arcade. And this is where I really began to dive into being a lot more competitive with Mortal Kombat 2, because I was a little bit older now, and I was starting to, by then I'd already had a year or so. This is also back when, remember, if you wanted to play Mortal Kombat, you had to play on the arcade cabinet. So by then I had become very good with the arcade controls. And there was so much fun in this game to be had back then. And, you know, we got revision 1.4 first, and then I specifically remember coming into seeing revision 2.1 one day. And I'm not 100% sure, it's getting a little fuzzy after all these years, but I believe revision 2.1 added the spikes up on the ceiling that you could uppercut an opponent into, but I don't think you could uppercut them into the ceiling just yet. I think revision 2.1 added a few more fatalities, added a little bit more blood here and there, and I don't think we had a stage fatality yet. We might have had the pit too. But then I remember revision 3.1 finally dropped, which is the final revision of Mortal Kombat 2. I think that was the one that got Shang Tsung morphing into Kintaro. And when this game came together at the end, wow, what an absolute package. We had this game for a good run in the arcades, and I played this more than any other Mortal Kombat game in the arcade back in the day. This had a tremendous run. To me, this still is one of the greatest Mortal Kombat games that they ever put out. It's got a tremendous vibe to it. Had so much fun playing it. This was around the time I was in 7th grade, and I really began to let a little bit of my school began to suffer because I was now funding my Mortal Kombat arcade habits by selling kablooies, which were a blue candy that turned your mouth blue. In my 7th grade classes, I would take a backpack full of Mortal Kombat 2 moveless and kablooies, and I would sell Mortal Kombat moveless for 50 cents, and I would sell kablooies for 50 cents. And I would take that money to the arcade and use that with my lawn mowing money, and that's how I funded Mortal Kombat 2. And I remember they didn't allow us to sell, that we ended up getting in trouble selling that candy at school, and I understand why. You can't, you know, somebody might have an allergy or something, so. But that is when I really began to get very, very deep into Mortal Kombat. And I smiled really big the other day because Baraka's got a really fun combo on Mortal Kombat 2 where you can do a cross kick into his chop chop blades, but it's very tight to do. And it's really tight, I think, to do on an arcade cab. And it used to be one of my favorite combos to do back in the day on the arcade cabinet. And I hit it on Legacy the other day online, and I just had a big smile on my face. But I have so many great memories of Mortal Kombat 2 back in the day. They had a lock-in at my arcade one time there where they just locked us in for, you know, I think it was like 24 hours. You know, parents must have loved that, you know, get the kids out of the house. It was free to play for like 24 hours in the arcade. Absolutely amazing time. Then we got to Mortal Kombat 3. Now, up to this point, I really enjoyed Mortal Kombat, and we were getting darker with the story. It was getting more mystical. You know, I was really liking that we had this new beefed up Kintaro boss, you know, upgraded Goro almost. And I was really loving the direction of the series. Then we get to Mortal Kombat 3, which we're going to jump into right now. Mortal Kombat 3 was an interesting time in my life. Coming off the heels of Mortal Kombat 2, which gave me some of my favorite characters in the franchise, Reptile, Baraka, Katana, Melina, many of those fan favorites. Also, my arcade had closed down. The mall that it was in shut down, so I no longer had my original arcade. It was a kind of a weird time for me right around then. I had to go to play arcade then at my local bowling alley in my hometown called Cypress Lanes. Great bowling alley, a lot of great memories there. They had a couple arcade machines in there, but they had MK3. And I don't have a lot of memories of this in particular game because this was only at that location, And shortly after, their machine was updated to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. So I didn't get a lot of time to play with this, but I do want to take you into the character select screen and just show you. A lot of my fan favorites from MK2 are gone. There's no Reptile. There's no Baraka. There's no Melina. There's no Katana. However, it gets deeper. There's no Scorpion. Sub-Zero's no longer a ninja. I became a Cyrax player, and I became very good with Cyrax in the arcades. And it was strange at that time because I remember there not being a lot of players anymore to like go against. In my personal area, there was not a lot of players. There were people that would come over and play the game, but there was not anybody that knew, you know, how to do it. I just didn't have a lot of the competitive players anymore, and it was a weird time. And you know, I was beginning to miss Mortal Kombat 2's look with the health bars, the thematic. I just wasn't overall a big fan of this game. And when I was growing up, you know, the one memory I do have is that my parents knew when I was growing up that if I did anything, if they knew that they could kind of use Mortal Kombat to keep me, you know, in not acting up. And I got in trouble one time. It was when I was young, and it was pretty serious trouble, well deserved on me being stupid. And I was not allowed to play Mortal Kombat for a month, and it was during this game's life cycle, so I got even less time with this game. But I remember specifically coming back with my father one day, and I specifically asked him if we could please stop at the bowling alley so I could just please use the restroom for maybe 5 minutes. And he looked at me like that father looks at a son, and I think he knew that I was wanting to go in there. I'd been on grounding for about 3 weeks, and he said, "Yeah, son, you can go in the bathroom." Go to the bathroom at the bowling alley, and he let me run in there. And you know, I expected him to come in and check on me, especially because I was in there for a few minutes. And when I got done playing, I played a couple matches on MK3, got my fix in, went back out to the car, and I remember he asked me, he said, how'd you go in the bathroom? How was it? And I said it was fine, you know, and whatever we said back and forth. I don't remember exactly, but it was a nice memory that you know, it gave me a little break just so I could get my MK fix, because I didn't get a lot of experience with MK3. But it shortly later got updated to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, but again, it was kind of weird. In my location, there was not a lot of players to be competitive with, and because it was just a bowling alley. But then we get to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and things begun to change a little bit there. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Now, I will never forget when our MK3 machine, I go in one day, and it's Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and I see Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Ninja Form Sub-Zero back, Reptile, Katana, Melina, all these characters updated into the game. Unbelievable, and nothing like seeing Scorpion and Sub-Zero in their ninja forms battling on screen once again until you see Sub-Zero hit this censored fatality. But I will never forget, there was more players in the arcade than for that. For this game, we actually had more players coming into play Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The bowling alley was busier around that time. I don't know what was going on at the bowling alley at the time, but I remember there being more people in the area of the bowling alley, and I remember a lot more players wandering in to the arcade section, and there being a lot more random players that would just walk up and play Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I remember getting destroyed by Sonya on a regular basis. I would have been about 15 or 16 around this time, and again, like, I didn't know about any competitive scene or anything like that. I had just been a kid that had been playing on the arcades for a while at that point, and I absolutely loved having all the classic characters back. And Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was a huge, huge, huge update. It was a lot of fun for me. I'll be honest, I was still at this point, there had been a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth from MK3, and I didn't get a chance to really appreciate the game for what it was. I actually played a lot of it on MK Legacy recently, and I really like MK3. But back then, MK3 left a kind of a bitter taste in my mouth. I missed kind of the outworldy element. I didn't really like the direction of, you know, the health bars being kind of just, you know, flat. And I didn't initially like the dial-a combo string. You know, I just wasn't 100% on board with the direction that things were going as far as moving away from the you know, the deep, dark lore that we had. Because MK3 and UMK3 were more kind of, you know, city-based, I guess. UMK3 gave us a little bit more outworldy vibe, but, you know, that was the first time that I kind of was like, I miss MK2 a little bit. MK2 has been my favorite for a long time. MK1's my favorite, but MK2 is a very close second. And then these games kind of left me hungry for them. But then there was a new arcade opening up in my area. Now, it wasn't open yet. It was going to be part of a brand new mall that was being built. And we had UMK3. I remember we'd been playing it at the bowling alley for a while, but I was very eager to see what the new arcade would look like that was opening up at a new mall near me called the Eagle Ridge Mall. So let's go ahead and jump into the days of Mortal Kombat 4, which would soon follow Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The beginning of the dark days of Mortal Kombat for me personally. At this point, I had seen two arcades kind of come and go. The bowling alley that I had been attending, playing games at, that was winding down. Their arcade no longer had Mortal Kombat. I'll never forget when MK4 dropped. You go in and your classic digitized sprites, the thing that first captivated me when I was 11 years old, they're gone. Now we have 3D rendered characters, beautiful looking, but the game was very different. And again, we were missing some of my fan favorite characters. You know, Katana, Melina, Baraka. There was the game, and we're Shao Kahn, Shang Tsung, nowhere to be found. Kano, you know, it was taking steps in a much different direction. I have grown to appreciate how Mortal Kombat changes with every formula, but at the time, MK3 left me with a little bit of a weird taste missing MK2. UMK3 I liked a lot, I really did, but it left me missing those. And then when this hit the arcades, I remember this being met with very mixed reviews. I remember playing this in the arcades, I remember having a good time, but it just didn't feel like the old days. And, you know, again, this is, now at this point with MK4, arcades were starting to slow down. You could feel it. Like, there wasn't the same, people weren't coming in like they used to. And you could just feel something was changing in the arcade scene. And it was, if you were an arcade player, it was kind of a tough time. There was other things that was drawing me out of it as well. I was getting, you know, a little bit older, and I was getting into dating and all that. And, you know, so I was, you know, more focused on, you know, hanging out with, you know, whoever, and going to movies and doing whatever, you know, getting into whatever chicanery we can get into. You know, and this just didn't hit the same as MK2. It left me hungry for that classic MK, and at the same time, that arcade did not have Mortal Kombat 1, they didn't have MK2, or UMK3. They just had MK4. It was the only arcade we had in town. I wasn't a very big competitive player. You know, I just went in there to plop in my quarters, and at that time, you know, I've been playing on the cabs for so long that most players that would come up that were casuals, I could easily take care of most. Because there wasn't a lot of people in my area that really hung around. It was a lot of just kind of passing through players. But MK4 was where I really began to kind of get a little bit, I guess, fatigued with the direction of the series. And it was also at the time that arcades were starting to slow down. Had I known that at the time would have been the last Mortal Kombat game, I would have spent more time in the arcades with it. I remember this specifically, and I remember not liking that you could throw the objects at your enemy. I thought it was just kind of a... I felt this was more of a campy game than a arcade fighter. I thought this was more of a... It was an excellent game. Looking back, it is. I have a Mortal Kombat 4 arcade cabinet right here. I grew to love this game, I did, but I felt this was more of a just a campy, fun game. And, you know, I still was just missing the old days of Mortal Kombat, missing the digitized sprites, but MK4, I didn't have a lot of time within the arcades. I remember being very casual with this game, and I remember I didn't put a lot of money. This is the first MK game in arcades that, yeah, I'd go in and play it, and that's why I'd go in the arcade, but then I'd walk around and see what else there was, and, you know, I just remember walking around thinking, I wish MK1 or MK2 was in here, but that's all I got to say about MK4. I did grow to love the game, and I'm super happy to have it on the MK Legacy Collection, so we can now relive this gem at home. And, you know, I did like that they made the health bars a little bit thematic for this game, as opposed to MK3 and MK2, which were just, you know, rectangles. But MK4 is where I consider this to be kind of an entry into the darker days for the franchise for myself personally. And then we got the biggest surprise that we'd ever gotten in the history of the franchise much later on after this game. And we're going to get to that right now. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Now, this was a turning point in the franchise's history. So, this was the first MK game that wasn't in arcades. And I will never forget, I wasn't a fan of the direction of the franchise for a little bit at this point, and I had a buddy that got this game. I didn't have a PlayStation 2. It was PlayStation 2 exclusive, not in arcades. There was no online, no way to play with others unless it was couch co-op. Liu Kang is dead. This game was a huge shift for the franchise, and a full move into the 3D realm, which I was already not happy with Mortal Kombat 4. I actually sat on the sidelines for a lot of this game's life cycle, and it wouldn't be... I played it a couple times, but I never really gave it that much play when it was out, only because this is when I really began to realize that a lot of my fun with MK came from playing with other players, especially in person. And at this point, I was so hungry for the arcade days, and I was missing the old classics that we grew up with. This was so different to me that I didn't give it a real chance for a very long time. Even to this day, this game's left a weird... I have a weird thing with this game to this day. I would like to play it online competitively sometime. Maybe if this game ever gets remastered, I can go back and check it out and maybe get a better experience with it, because I don't think I've given this game the proper chance. I've heard great things about this. A lot of hardcore 3D players that I've heard from and talked to prefer this competitively out of the whole 3D genre, but I don't have a lot to say about that, about Deadly Alliance, much beyond that. So, wasn't my favorite at the time, still isn't one of my favorites, but I haven't given it a lot of chance, so maybe one day I'll revisit it. Mortal Kombat Deception, released October 4th, 2004. I will never forget seeing this game from across the mall. We were coming out of the music shop. I was like a FYE or something like that in my local mall. This was right on the other side of the arcade. So when you would leave the arcade where I'd been playing Mortal Kombat 4, you could walk down maybe about 50 yards, look to the left, and you would see this record shop. Across from that was our GameStop, I believe it was. And I could see a new Mortal Kombat game on the shelf. And when I went over there, it was Mortal Kombat Deception. It had a really cool box art showing Onaga the Dragon King, but I remember seeing clearly the online logo. And that's what caught my eye. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to be able to play with real people again in Mortal Kombat. I'm in. I'm totally in. Then I picked it up and I looked at the box. Mortal Kombat Deception comes with Mortal Kombat Arcade 1992 on the collector's edition. Okay, so this is when we had to rush back home, me and my missus at the time, and I had to immediately get this pre-ordered, and I will never forget when this game came out. This was the first game that I became competitive in. And it wasn't intentional. It was, I played every single day, and I kept getting destroyed, and one day, a player named Varchild is one player who helped me a lot. Nugs06 was another player that helped me a lot. And they just pulled me aside one day and said, hey man, you're on here every single day, just absolutely getting your ass handed to you. Why don't you, we're going to show you how to play. And I said, cool. That sounds good. And they were the first ones to actually show me how to play at a higher level, and I learned things about this game, including the free grabs, including OTGs. This game had a lot of stuff in it. This game had infinites in it. This was a wonderful game to experience during its life cycle too, because you could do the chess combat online, you could do the puzzle combat online. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now this is still online on the PS2 fan server, but I remember specifically sitting down, I believe it was Varchild, and we went online one day and he taught me how to do Jade's long high damage combo. Taught me about auto recover, which you can hold down, back, or down, forward on the D-pad. When you get knocked down, you will instantly get back on your feet. There was a whole bunch that I ended up learning about this game, and that was a turning point for me with Mortal Kombat, because up until that point, I had never really considered like the competitive aspect or ever considered trying to make it on a leaderboard. But that was the day I started. And I want to show you, if you go to the Hall of Fame, you can see the original names up here. And Zonum was actually a bot account. When I say bot account, it wasn't a bot. It was actually somebody that boosted themselves up there. One of the classic accounts. But the online leaderboards are still here to this day. If you scroll through this, there's Nugs06. He was number 8 when the server was turned off. That is who helped me a lot on this game. And if you go down to rank 76, rank 72, you're going to see my name, because I actually was rank 72 right there when this game server was turned off. And luckily the rankings are still locked to this day. So if you remember the name D-Wayne right there, that was my old name. That's my old high school nickname. And as you can see, I had 4,150. Oh, you can't see. Hang on. I had 4,156 wins. A lot of these players that are in this top 100 got here with very few wins. And I worked my butt to the bone to get that ranking right there. And I don't remember if we had any forewarning about the server shutting down, but when it's shut down, it sucked. But many years later in 2015, Conquer, who also I want to say helped me play this game, I remember Conquer's name being on the server back then. But in 2015, Conquer tweeted out that Mortal Kombat Deception was online again on a fan server on PlayStation 2. I immediately jumped on the fan server, started playing Deception online again. And that is how I ended up becoming a streamer, because I started streaming more Mortal Kombat Deception matches to find more players. And because nobody believed me when I said Deception was still online. But that is how I got into streaming, actually, was that tweet about Mortal Kombat Deception being online. But this was an amazing game for the franchise. Playing this online was a ton of fun. We had a great roster. This is the first game that I really locked in on and was super competitive with it, to the point players used to play on here with cheat devices like an Action Replay Max or a Code Breaker, and sometimes they'd have infinite health. And Hotaru has an infinite combo on here where if you get the first hit, you could just keep the infinite combo going. And if they had infinite health turned on, the way it would work is when you hit them, it would take some damage away, but then they'd heal up. Well, if you locked these players into an infinite combo and you ran the clock out, you could still beat them if you timed it right and you hit them and took the damage off as the clock hit 0. So this was the first game, like I said, that I really locked in on being super competitive with. I always played Ashra. This is where I became a huge Ashra player. To this day on MK1, I'm a huge Ashra player. Played Jade a lot back then. I love Scorpion. I love Sub-Zero, very flashy character. Baraka was completely nuts. Havoc was an absolute mix machine. Havoc has a super damaging move in this game too. His up 2, I think, is 21% damage in his snake stance. I believe that is the highest damaging single move in Mortal Kombat history to this day. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comment section below. Liu Kang was a lot of fun. He had a lot of good hard knockdowns. A lot of OTGs and free grabs in this game. This game, I could probably, with a lot of players, just infinite through the whole round, and they might not even know, between setups you can do with free grabs and knockdowns, hard knockdowns, with OTG relaunches, which set up for another... The possibilities with this game were endless, and there was a lot of layers in 3D combat, and I hope this comes back one day, because these games were tremendous. I had so much fun playing them back in the day. And like I said, this is the first game that I really locked in on and wanted to start playing a little more serious with. I still clowned around a lot, but Mortal Kombat Deception is really what brought me back into the franchise, because coming off the heels of MK4 and MK Deadly Alliance, like, I already didn't like the direction with MK4, but then with Deadly Alliance, with no online, a fully embracing 3D, but then with this being online, this was the game that really saved it for me and brought me back into the franchise. Now, I do want to mention, before we go any further, around the MK4 days, we did get Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero Mythologies, and Mortal Kombat 4 did come out on, PS1 back in the day. I did play a lot of Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and I did play a lot of Mortal Kombat 4 back in those days, and I highly, highly enjoyed it. And I just want to throw that in there because I know some of you might be wondering if I didn't cover those or not, but covering the mainline games basically here. But that takes me to the next game in the franchise. Now, after Mortal Kombat Deception, we got Shaolin Monks, which introduced air combat into the mechanics of Shaolin Monks. And then we got news of the next game to follow Shaolin Monks, which was also going to include air combat, which I remember being a huge topic of debate at the time. And without further ado, we're going to get into that game right now, which many of you may remember. Mortal Kombat Armageddon came out hot off the heels of Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. When we first heard this game was going to have air combat, I remember specifically all the backlash in the community. People were talking about, is it over for Mortal Kombat? Like, what is this? Fans who had played Shaolin Monks didn't know what to expect with air combat. We slowly started to get videos of the game. The air combat looked pretty cool. It turned out to be pretty fun. This game was a little bit more of a campy game, I felt, than a series. It wasn't as... It's kind of a watered-down version of Deception because you had 62 fighters on here, plus created character. And some of my favorite characters from Deception kind of got nerfed a little bit. Jade's axe kick went from being a overhead in Deception to being a high in this game. Some of the long combos were changed because you're down to 2 fighting styles instead of 3. A lot of fans missed the classic fatalities. But this roster was amazing, and there was a lot of fun to be had in this game. And the air combos were actually pretty broken in certain situations. You could do a lot of crazy stuff in this game still. And I'll be honest, I think some of the most fun Mortal Kombat games are some of the most broken. And this game was an absolute mess in certain aspects, and it was super fun to play through. Ashura was still an amazing character on this. I gravitated more towards Kira in this game. She was my main player. To this day, Kira is pretty much who I will start maining with. I played a lot with Rain on this game's life cycle. Loved playing Rain, Reptile. He carries over some of Liu Kang's fighting styles. This game was all about knowing the fighting styles. If you played Deception and Deadly Alliance and you knew the fighting styles for each individual character for the past 2 games, a lot of these characters had fighting styles given to them, like Katana had Baga, which was Ashura's fighting style, her second fighting style in Deception, so I had a little bit of knowledge from that there. Just as you go through, Reiko had one of Melina's old fighting styles from Mortal Kombat Deception. So this was an interesting game to get into. I never got into it super competitively as I did Deception. Only because, like, often in this games you would run into, like, somebody playing Blaze that would just steamroll you over the time, or you'd run into somebody playing a created character that would just go absolutely broken madness on you. But this was still a great game. I remember it being received very poorly at the time, though. Fans did not like the watered-down fatalities. They did not like the new storyline. Taven. A lot of people thought Taven was, like, the worst, most boring character of all time. Taven and his brother Dagon. But this was a new generation's Mortal Kombat trilogy, and I don't think we even appreciated it for what we had at the time. Looking back, this game has aged quite well, and I have a huge blast playing this online to this day. You can go to ps2online.com, look at all the information about this game online, find the rankings, leaderboard, still going on to this day. This does have rankings you can look up. You can go online and you can look at the trophy, which currently our name is on the trophy. I remember playing this back in the day thinking it'd be so cool to have my name under that trophy. Years later on the fan server, they did reset things, so reflect things on the ps2online.com leaderboard, and it froze our name on there at the time because we were number 1 when it got reset. So that's pretty cool. But this I wasn't as competitively into as I was Mortal Kombat Deception, but this carried us through combat, you know, from 2006 till around 2008 time, when there was rumors then of a new Mortal Kombat on the way, and this one was going to be on PlayStation 3. And up to now, we'd had Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox that was out at the time as well. But we were eagerly awaiting the next Mortal Kombat game, and this had been good, but it wasn't a masterpiece like Deception was. Motor Combat was a lot of fun on this. You could play Motor Combat online. This also came with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 Arcade if you got the Premium Edition, which was very, very cool. There was a lot of bonuses with these games too, but I had a lot of fun playing this growing up, and it's one of the games that I have the best memories with, along with Mortal Kombat Deception. And to this day, I look back on Deception and Mortal Kombat Armageddon with very fond memories. Absolutely loved them. Darius was a great fighter in this. Kai was a great fighter. A lot of people never used Kai in this, so they didn't know how to defend against him. Jarek also, not a lot of people used him. Very rare to see some of these characters in a Mortal Kombat game like Jarek or Kai. Mavado making his comeback. You got Hotaro here. I mean, Su Hao. Some of these characters, you know, Cobra. I doubt we'll be seeing these names anytime very, very soon. But then we got to the, let's get to those rumors of the next Mortal Kombat game, because those were pretty shocking. And just like that, we are back in the dark days of Mortal Kombat in my eyes. So we'd heard rumors that the next MK game was going to be a crossover with DC superheroes. And sure enough, the rumors were true. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe would be releasing as the next Mortal Kombat game. And this game was not just riddled with the weight of being a crossover game, coming off the heels of arguably the most feature-packed Mortal Kombat games in the franchise's history in the 3D era of Deception. Even Deadly Alliance. The Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon were so full of robust bonus content that when we got here, this was the first game on PlayStation 3, by the way. And when we got here, you know, you go to extras, you have your bios. Okay. Cool. Scorpion. You know, you go look at a bio, and, okay, you know. You didn't have much in this game, and I was not a fan of superheroes. It's never been my thing. I was always a Mortal Kombat player, and, you know, you had endings and you had credits. So you had bios and endings. That was your bonus content. Now, on Xbox Live, I was on PlayStation 3, but you can still go in and you can still play online. You can do private matches. You can't do you can't do ranked, I don't think, and I don't think you can join lobbies. But I remember playing this game, and this was an interesting game. There was a lot of infinites in this game between Flash, Superman. I think Green Lantern had an infinite. I remember when I played this, I was a huge fan of Sub-Zero in this game. I think this is actually one of Sub-Zero's best iterations. He's got a cool teleport in this game. He's got a great move where he freezes a block of ice in there and it falls on you. Scorpion had an interesting move in this game where it was down 2. He could light himself on fire and just sit there. And there were certain characters in this game that had no way to hit you unless there were certain characters that their only projectile was a high, I believe, and I think they would all go over Scorpion. So there were certain instances with this game where you could play online and Scorpion, your opponent could pick Scorpion, they could get the life lead, and then they could just sit there and light themselves on fire, and they could run the clock out. You couldn't touch them. And I just wasn't a fan of the superheroes, and again, this is another one of those moments in my time with MK where I was like, I'm just not liking the direction of the franchise. But I did suck it up, and I did play this game a lot, but it was not. I was hungry for the old days of Mortal Kombat with the 3D era. You know, there was none of that dark, gritty lore in this game, you know, and this was a little bit more competitive focused. Hindsight being 2020, I regret not getting into this more a little bit competitively at the time, but I remember I played a lot of Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was one of my favorites in this game. I played him on the DC side by far the most. I played Deathstroke a lot. I remember playing him very improperly because I learned the character a little bit more last year, and I played him very wrong in the original run of this game. I played Raiden. Raiden, I think this is one of his best iterations. Liu Kang was a lot of fun in this game too. Shang Tsung had a lot of fun combos in this too. The pro moves in this in certain aspects were very fun to do. Very tight links on this game to do some combos. And this was an interesting game for its run. It really was. It left fans hungry for classic Mortal Kombat. And also, I think fans at this point were beginning to get very fatigued with the 3D stuff. I know there had been rumblings in the community for a very long time. Fans wanted to go back to the classic 2D. Fans just wanted to experience old Mortal Kombat again. They didn't want these nerfed fatalities and all this rated T for teen stuff in Mortal Kombat. And that's all I got to say about MK versus DC. It had an interesting story, but as far as me playing this online very serious or anything like that, this game, this was around the time that friends started to get me into Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Black Ops 1. I started to become a Resident Evil 5 player around this time, and I also started to become a Call of Duty player. So it's important. I noticed that, if Mortal Kombat, even for the hardest of hardcore fans, if the MK game is not strong, we have to be careful because, fans can drift away from the franchise. And this, I think, really left fans kind of lingering, kind of wondering what the future of the franchise might hold. And we would find out soon after exactly what the franchise would hold in the future of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 9 was one of the most glorious times to be a Mortal Kombat fan that I ever remember in the franchise's history. From the moment this game was announced to the first second that we saw gameplay footage to hearing the news that 2D combat was returning after many years. Keep in mind, Mortal Kombat had not been 2D since the 90s. With Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, that was the last time Mortal Kombat had been in 2D. After that, we got Mortal Kombat 4, and then we went all the way from MK4 back in the late 90s, all the way up to 2011, when Mortal Kombat was released. This returned the franchise into 2D, and this was a complete love letter to fans. The blood, the gore, the guts, the dark storytelling, everything that made Mortal Kombat was back with a vengeance. It was absolutely a smash masterpiece, filled with bonus content that was lacking in the previous title. There was so much to get into, with an edge focused on competitive in this game. This was a return to bloody roots for the franchise, and it was a wonderful time to be a Mortal Kombat fan. And I remember having so much fun with this game back in the day. This is also around the time that Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection was released alongside this game, and I remember thinking, oh, obviously I'm going to play the classic arcade games more than I'm going to play this. That ended up not being the case. MK Arcade Collection had a lot to go against with this game right here. Arguably one of the greatest Mortal Kombat games ever released, in my opinion. And if you go look at the roster on this game, an absolutely tremendous roster of characters, classic skins, classic characters returning, wonderful combo system in this game. Game played absolutely tremendous. Truly a pleasure to play Mortal Kombat 9. If you had a chance to play it back in the day online, I will never forget some of my happiest memories playing this game. And I'll be honest, this was at a point in my life where things were beginning to change for me personally, and I was not doing very well. And I lost my internet shortly, about 2 years into this game's life cycle. I lost my internet, and I didn't have any way to play other than to use my cell phone's Wi-Fi hotspot. RIP to those players that I used to... so sorry to those players I used to play on my cell phone's Wi-Fi hotspot. And I'll tell you a neat thing about this game. When you would boot this up, when you would get to this screen here, it would give you that uppercut, and there would be a spinning circle over here. If you had bad internet, it would sometimes freeze right there on PS3, and it would cause you to have to actually literally unplug your PS3 and plug it back in and rebuild your database on your PS3, and it was a nightmare. But I had a lot of fun playing this game. Admittedly, I struggled in this game competitively because I was not focused on Mortal Kombat at the time. I had a lot of other things going on in my life, and my focus was not with MK at the time. I had a lot of casual fun with this game. I was a huge Ermac player in this game. I loved Reptile. I loved Sub-Zero. I loved Scorpion in this game. Liu Kang was a lot of fun. I never liked Kung Lao that much. I did play a lot of Jade, very brain-dead Jade. I remember loving Sector, seeing cool stuff with Cyrax that I could never pull off, but I remember seeing a lot of crazy stuff online. There was a lot of crazy Shang Tsung players back in the day. I still have the arcade stick that came with the premium edition up right over there. I'll never forget the DLC. Scarlet, Kenshi, Rain, and Freddy Krueger. If you play on PlayStation, you even got Kratos with this game. Absolute masterpiece from top to bottom, and exactly what the franchise needed at the time to propel it back to the top, because MK vs. DC left fans real hungry for the franchise to return to its bloody roots, and it did a great job with this game. I wish I would have been in a better headspace at the time, and I would have been better at this game during its life cycle, because this was an absolute masterpiece. And I remember no matter how bad things got with me personally, there was a point in time where I actually was living at a hotel for a short time, and I remember taking my PlayStation 3, hooking it up to the hotel TV, and I remember having to use the Wi-Fi from the hotel office to play online. And it was just the most miserable experience, but I was so happy and so thankful to be able to play online, because that was Mortal Kombat has always been my release throughout all these years. Mortal Kombat was one thing that was always constant in my life that I could always go back to and release some stress and go online and play with friends and meet new players. And I've always had so much fun doing it. And with this game, this was a game that was super hard to put down back in the day. Playing this online was so much fun. Thank you to all the players that played back in the day. This is still online on Xbox. The netcode is absolutely atrocious. I'll give you a brief look at what it looked like just for a little historical look and a little bringing back some memories. You can still do King of the Hill on here, which is super cool to see. Very themed looking area right here. Shao Kahn looking like an absolute menace. I miss Mortal Kombat 9, and it's the one game I don't know why I don't know why this game is not more readily available for players. I've heard rumors that it's something to do with Freddy Krueger. I don't know. Freddy Krueger's on MK Mobile. If you know, let me know in the comments section below. I'm trying to make this video as short as I possibly can while covering everything about these games and the things I remember about their life cycle. But I remember this being one of the most thunderous, uproarious just return. I mean, fans up and down were just hungry beyond words for this game to come out. And when it came out, I remember it just satisfied every expectation that we had for this game. It was 10 notches above what we thought. And also, I want to point out, many of you may remember that when this game first released, it was out for, I think, maybe 24 hours before PlayStation 3 was hacked and was offline for about a month. And I didn't have an Xbox, so for the first month, us PlayStation players didn't really get a chance to enjoy Mortal Kombat 9 online, because PSN was offline for about a month, if I'm not mistaken. And for those that remember, we actually got a couple free games for sitting through that. If you went through that and you got one of those free games, let me know what it was. But appreciate you checking out this part of the video for Mortal Kombat 9. This was one of my favorites in the history of Mortal Kombat to grow up with, and one of the games that I absolutely love playing through its life cycle from top to bottom. Mortal Kombat 9. Ladies, can we get a round of applause for MK9 in the chat? Let's go. Beautiful game. I hope it gets remade one day, remastered, or just re-released. But then we get into the next game that would come to follow this shortly after. Mortal Kombat X. Now, this is the game that followed Mortal Kombat 9. There was a few things when this game came out. Originally announced for the PS3 and PS4 and the other Xbox and the next-gen Xbox as well. Soon after, they would announce that no, the previous gen Xbox and PS3 ports were going to be canceled. I really regret getting rid of my Walmart pre-order card for the PlayStation 3 version, because I think that'd be a really cool piece of history to have, because I did have a PS3 MKX pre-order card that I took back to Walmart and returned to get my $10 back. But I played this on release with my friend, who I used to play Deception Armageddon with, and immediately the presentation caught me. It was a little bit different. It was a little bit darker tone. I didn't really care for the combat kids. There was a couple of first initial impressions that wasn't the hugest fan of the new changes. The story mode kind of jumped all over the place, but if I'm going to be completely honest, I was going through a lot of things in my life at the time, and there was a lot of other things that were just taking priority other than Mortal Kombat or gaming in general, and I wasn't really doing well at the time, but in general, I just never really got a chance to experience this game until really around the MKXL update. And that's when things were starting to balance out for me. And I do remember having fun with this game online, but it never really drew me in too much. I never got super competitive with it. I didn't enjoy it like I did Deception or Armageddon or even the arcade classics, but I did play Shinnok. He was my main. I played a lot of Jason, I played a lot of Alien, and I played a lot of Cyrax, Sector, Quan Chi, Goro. I didn't like the combat kids that much. I didn't like some of the designs. Like, I thought Reptile was just kind of like, I don't know. But this game not being on PS3 left a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. And I didn't give this game much of a chance at the time, because I didn't get a chance to play it very long at a higher level. I really regret that. This is one of those MK games I would love to go back and revisit now that I'm I'm older, wiser, smarter, and I'm a lot more settled down and a lot more competitively focused. I would love to revisit MKX and actually learn this game top to bottom, because this is a fantastic fighting game. As far as a Mortal Kombat title itself, I've never liked this game as a Mortal Kombat title, only because I felt this game lacked a lot of the MK vibe. This is very Special Forces based, and I run into a clash with that with some of these games where I was like, it's great. It's a great competitive fighter. It's an excellent competitive fighter, but as an MK game, lore-wise, there's a couple things that didn't hit the best for me, but I love this game now, and I do want to revisit it one day. However, back in the day, I missed a lot of it, and it left me hungry for a few things that I'd had in the past. Like, I liked classic MK Reptile, classic MK9 Ninja Reptile. And, we got some new things in this game. It was fun to play for what it was. I had my fun. This was the first game I competed in an NRS tournament for at Tampa Never Sleeps in 2017, I think. And it was fun. I competed with Jason. I got absolutely demolished. But I remember good memories with this game. I wish it would have been on PS3. Maybe I got a little more time with it in the initial days. One thing for me personally is I enjoy going through the life cycle of an MK game so you can experience all the tech from day one. And by the time I jumped on this game, I felt so far behind that I would never be able to catch up to everybody else. But then, we had Injustice 1 and Injustice 2, and they had MK characters in there scattered in, Scorpion was in Injustice 1, you had Raiden and Sub-Zero in Injustice 2. I played them. I didn't like Injustice 1 that much at all. And then when Scorpion was DLC, I thought maybe I'll try Scorpion. Maybe I'll like it. Nah, I didn't like Injustice 1. Injustice 2 I did enjoy. I played a ton of Injustice 2, although I barely remember anything from it. I remember I played Injustice 2 a lot, and I used to stream it a lot as well. And but it wasn't ever my favorite, I was hungry for MK, and soon after we would hear news of the next Mortal Kombat game that would be coming. And that one was actually the game that I was super excited for, because when we get to this next title, this was the first time where I had come through all the hard stuff. All the challenges I've been going through before were over with. So now I had the time, the health, and everything I needed to focus on the next game and see if I had what it still takes in the modern day to actually, be slightly competitive in an online scene with a current NRS Mortal Kombat. We're going to jump into that game right now. Mortal Kombat 11. This is a game I was super excited for. If you made it this far into the video, I say thank you. Now, I'll be completely honest, up to this point, during the life cycle of MK9, I became a very heavy drinker. And that led to a litany of problems. MKX, by the time MKX came out, it had really become like a problem. And I actually suffered a lot of health problems from it as well. So, by the time MK11 was coming around, when this game got announced, things were much different. I was happy, healthy, sober. I had a great channel going. I'd made Headlocked at this time. I had a young fostering community coming up behind me. I was feeling better than I'd ever felt. Everything was coming together, and things had been really good. And for the first time, I was back where Mortal Kombat could be the focus. And this was the game where I was like, okay, now things are different. I can get the new console. I will have this game on day one. I'm hungry for Mortal Kombat again, and I have my passion back for Mortal Kombat. And I remember this game had a lot of cool things. It looked like it was going to be a pretty promising title. And we got the beta. And it's interesting how, through the history of Mortal Kombat, how some games click with certain players and some don't. I remember the first day playing this beta, and I remember just playing it thinking, wow, this is clicking with me on day one. And this was an amazing game for what it was. We got a lot of content over years. We were playing with viewers on a daily basis. We were doing multiple streams a week with this game. We had Towers of Time Tuesday where we were going through Towers of Time, trying to unlock skins and gear and brutalities, all these different things. Story mode was fantastic. We had great DLC coming to this game. I loved playing Spawn. He was my main by the end of this game. There was a lot of fun things going on with Mortal Kombat 11. We got about 4.5 years of content with this game, and I really enjoyed playing this. And I never really remembered playing. I remember loving playing this game with viewers and online on the live streams. I don't remember playing this game hardly ever in my off time. Now, this game was a full package top to bottom. It really was. But something about the fighting itself, once the fighting began, once the bell rang and the match was going, it felt kind of restrictive to me. And that was the only thing. It just felt a little bit restrictive, and you kind of felt like your hands were a little tied on this game in certain scenarios. But I really enjoyed this, and this was the first game that I ever went and competed at Evo with, and it was the first time I went to a tournament where I really kind of felt like, okay, now I've gotten some more knowledge in here, and you know, there's a good chance that I might be able to squeeze out a round or two here. And Evo was a tremendous time, and I want to say that was 2022. But for the most part, this game had a great life cycle. You know, I don't know if there was ever more planned for this game. It would have been amazing if this game would have got one more DLC pack with Reptile, Ermac, Smoke, Cyrax, and Sector. We had 5 guests in this game. I think if we'd swapped them out for those 5 characters I just mentioned, this game would have been absolutely insane. But I had a lot of fun playing this. A lot of all my time on this game is documented on the channel. And this was really my return to Mortal Kombat, where I could actually experience the game from day one and try to see how far I could actually take myself if I tried to focus. And even back then, I wasn't focused like I needed to be, but I had a ton of fun playing Mortal Kombat 11 through its life cycle. The whole time we had this game, I remember thinking, man, I wish Ashura would come back, though. And I remember at one point they had a teaser trailer where at the end they heard a chainsaw, and rumored allegedly it was going to be Ash Williams' chainsaw, and for whatever reason Ash Williams didn't come. But I remember making a meme that said it was Ashura holding a chainsaw, and I said still hoping that it's Ashura holding the chainsaw from Mortal Kombat 11. But looking back, I have great memories of this game, playing competitively and playing casually with friends. Competitively, I was never that good at this game. I was not where I needed to be yet as a player. But then after this game was starting to dry up, they announced support was ending for the game, and everybody was disappointed, and they said that NRS was working on all their efforts for their next project. And we didn't know yet what that next project was, but we would soon find out, and we're going to get into that game right now. Mortal Kombat 1, one of the arguably the most divisive games in the franchise's history, as a lot of fans were not happy with this title as it introduced a custom cameo system. I think it's kind of like an extension of the original variation system. You're essentially just adding new moves to your character depending on which cameo you select, but this game did introduce Ashura back into the franchise, who I've been waiting for a very long time. And it's interesting how it kind of became full circle, because Ashura is who I got to rank 72 with on Mortal Kombat Deception all the way back in 2004. So when Ashura returned in this game, I definitely wanted to play with her and see how far I could go with her. Now, I cannot remember exactly where all I competed, but I do remember, I want to say my first event with Ashura was CEO here in Florida, and I won my first match there with Ashura. And I remember being absolutely ecstatic. I was like, okay, my first competitive event with Ashura, I win my first match, or my first set. I was super happy with that. And then I went to loser's bracket, and I got eliminated from loser's bracket right away. But I was happy I won my first match. I wasn't there to win big money. I was there for the love of the game. And it was just felt amazing, too, after all these years, be in that position where I could actually, you know, at the age I was, to actually even win a set in an event like that. And then I can't remember the next event I was at, but then I know following that was Combo Breaker. And Combo Breaker was an amazing event for me, because that was the day that I first got a chance to play on stage. Very first time playing on stage, we opened Combo Breaker 2025. We were literally the first match on stream. And I remember before I took the stage, I had so many thoughts going through my head from the past, all the years past up to this point, because now for the first time, a lot of players probably don't even realize who I am when I sit on stage, and they probably definitely don't know I've been here since day one of Mortal Kombat. And I remember thinking, as I was walking on stage, the whole Mortal Kombat world is watching me. And I've lived on camera for 9 years as a streamer. And I didn't expect to be any bit nervous because I live on camera. However, that day, right before I took stage, I got a little nervous. It was like 1% nervous, 99% excited, maybe 99% nervous, 1% excited. I don't know, but that was what made it so fun to be a part of. I had massive butterflies going through me, and it was an honor to be on stage at Combo Breaker. And we actually won that set on stage. Huge moment for your boy. And because I didn't expect to be on stage that day, and I definitely didn't expect to win. And then we went to pools, where we had an amazing run in pools. We actually went defeated our first opponent on winner's side after that. So we won on stage 3-2. I won 3 matches, he won 2. Then we went to losers or winners bracket and we beat our first opponent 3-0. Then I beat the next opponent 3-0. Beat my next opponent 3-1. And then right before I made it out, I got eliminated by the next player. Got sent to losers bracket where I did, I think, I got eliminated right in losers bracket, I think, when I went to losers bracket. But I came in top 49 at Combo Breaker 2025. Huge honor to be a part of that. And that was one of my favorite events that I got a chance to be a part of. Evo was the next event that I would attend and compete with Ashura. That was a unique event. This last Evo, I felt with Mortal Kombat 1, things felt different there. It felt very odd, and I would like to talk to other players that were there at Evo. The event just felt different. It didn't have the same energy that Evo had before. And I do remember Evo that I was at the first year was 2023, because Evo that I was at competing in Mortal Kombat 11 was the year they were showing Mortal Kombat 1 over in the corner, so it was 2023. But Evo, the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection was at Evo in 2025, and so I was jumping over there back and forth, but I don't know, it just felt different at Evo 25. The matches were great, and I didn't perform as well as I wanted, but my heart admittedly was not 100% in it, because instead of me being completely focused on Mortal Kombat 1 and, you know, Ashura being back in the franchise for the first time, you know, my mind was thinking, man, like, you know, I remember specifically when we were playing pools. Pools started, I think, at 10 or 11 a.m. And the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection was having a panel at 12, at noon. And I remember thinking, like, okay, well, if I play real well, you know, GG's, and I advance, I know I'm not going to win, but if I advance too far, I might miss the Legacy Collection panel. So I remember thinking, like, I'm going to play I played just very reckless, and I could have done better, but I am very proud of how I played against the Havoc player that I played. His name's eluding me at the moment. I'll have to go back and look at the brackets, but one of the best Havoc players out there. And I remember I labbed so much before just researching how this player played, just breaking it down. I don't think it might have been Han Rashid. If it was Han, big shout out. I know I played Han. It was either at Combo Breaker or Evo, but absolutely had a blast playing that match, because I was very proud, because throughout the whole match I could not open up my opponent, but I was able to get out of most of everything they were trying to do to me, because I labbed so much about Havoc. There's so many openings to take advantage of that they weren't able to pull off anything high damage or flashy, and I was very happy with how I played. But Mortal Kombat 1 in a nutshell is the game that I played the most out of all the NRS games. I have had so much fun with this game, sunk in so many hours that it is absolutely ridiculous. And I absolutely look back on this game with fond memories. It'll be one of my most fun played Mortal Kombats, and this is the game where I really pushed myself to be... I really wanted to see how far I could go competitively with Ashura, and I didn't even work nearly as hard as I should have. And when the next game comes along, I'm going to be trying even harder to push myself a little bit further to see how farther along I can push the envelope competitively, because Mortal Kombat 1 did awaken that a little bit more in me, just to see, like, how far can I actually push that competitive side of Mortal Kombat once again with my favorite character Ashura coming back. So Mortal Kombat 1 in a nutshell wasn't a game for everybody, but for me it was a tremendous fighter, and I do think it's one of the most creative games they've ever put out for as far as the fighting engine. And I think if you haven't checked it out, give it a chance. Check it out sometime. You got 21 different cameos, 21 different ways to change your character. I mean, it's a ton of fun, but that's all I got to say about Mortal Kombat 1. Lots of fun memories, and one of the most competitive games for me that I've ever played for Mortal Kombat. By far the game that I got the most in-depth with competitively. Had a lot of fun, and I will miss this game when it's done. It's funny how this video came to be, because I was playing Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, and I thought, you know, I've never really introduced myself to the MK community, and a lot of players probably don't know that I've been around since the original arcade days, and I got history with all these games, and, you know, Mortal Kombat's always been a part of my life, and now we have the MK Legacy Collection, which I think this is a beautiful way to round trip this whole video, because this is where these games started for me. And I've been having personally so much fun playing these live, playing with random players around the world, just running into whoever I can run into, playing Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo, Mortal Kombat 3. I played Mortal Kombat 3 50 matches the other night with a great player, and that was the most I played MK3 since the arcade days. Really great to now have a new game to competitively focus on and see how far can I actually push the competitive aspect for Mortal Kombat now that the Legacy Collection is here. While we eagerly anticipate and wait for what the future could hold for Mortal Kombat in the new era, we have the classic era to look back on, and it's nice that I can round trip this video by ending with Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, because I'm going to jump into this now and go revisit some of the classics. But if you watch this video all the way through its entirety, I appreciate you. This is kind of like Headlock Gaming, the history of the movie, and a lot of my thoughts on these previous games and what it was like playing through them back in the day. And hopefully you found this informative. You get to learn a little bit about me, and I hope that Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection makes it to EVO. I really, really do. I would like to see classic arcade Mortal Kombat featured at least one more time on the grand stage. I think this game's got a bright future ahead. I really do. And whatever is in store for Mortal Kombat in the future for the mainline franchise after MK1, I look forward to it. Just like all the other titles, I'm going to take it with the bumps, with the hurdles, with the hiccups, and we'll see what comes. And I look forward. One thing I've loved about Mortal Kombat throughout the years is I've loved running into players from a previous game and then knowing that I'm going to see them on the next game and see how they hang in that. Like, I've loved seeing Mortal Kombat 1 players come over to Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. I ran into some sweats that I used to play on PlayStation tournaments in Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection on Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat 2. It's one of the things I've always loved about MK changing the games over the years. But if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss any future uploads and you can find us again in the future. I'm just a very old arcade head locked in for life. Here's a little history on Headlocked Gaming and my thoughts on previous games and where we're at currently on the Mortal Kombat franchise now that we're up to the MK Legacy Collection. This video turned out a lot longer than I thought it would, but I guess we're spanning over 30 plus years of Mortal Kombat history for me personally. So, and in between time, we also had, Mortal Monday, the home ports, which we enjoyed. Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Mortal Kombat. Can't leave those out of this video. Grew up on those. Many players from those days might remember the Sega Genesis 3-button controller. Learning to play Mortal Kombat for the first time on a controller, not the arcade cabinet, was a wild experience. But I'd like to hear from you in the comments section. Why don't you go ahead and tell me some of your Mortal Kombat stories, where you came up, what your first game was, where you started, where you think the franchise is going. And if you want to see more videos like this about my history with MK games, or me to dive a little bit deeper into any of the games' life cycles or anything like that, let me know in the comments section below. GG's, my friends. Much love. Headlocked heading out for now. But as always, I will see you on the next Mortal Kombat video. Take care, friendos. Peace.